Okay. Well, hey, gang. Marty Mulford is the VP of tickets at the Columbus Blue Jackets, correct?
Correct.
And the first time I met you, we were at, I want to say Atlanta?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. And you were with the Hurricanes at the time, correct?
Predators.
Predators. So tell us about yourself, Marty. We have an exciting class, and so interested in not just sports, but everything around it. So go for it.
Yeah, so I grew up in Georgia. Um, wanted to play baseball professionally, which that didn't work out. So when I ended up going to college, I went down to Florida Atlantic University. Thought I wanted to be a beat writer and cover, so I went down there and went to Florida Atlantic. Like I said, and wanted to start. I worked at the newspaper in Fort Lauderdale. So after a few years of that, I graduated, sent out a bunch of resumes to minor league baseball teams, got a job in Carolina with the Mudcats as a ticket sales rep. Did that for a couple of years, or for about 6 months. Then moved to Pensacola to work for a minor league hockey team. Did that for 2 years. Then I went to the Florida Panthers for 2 years as a ticket rep. The Marlins, moved over to the Marlins as group sales manager for 6 years. Then moved to Nashville as the director of ticket sales. I was in Nashville for 11 years, and now I'm our VP of ticket sales and service here with the Blue Jackets. I've been here 5 years. So it's a lot of different places. Not as many as other people do or have done, but it's been a great career, and that's where I'm at right now. I'm actually flying to Vegas tonight to go watch us play in Vegas tomorrow. So we'll see what happens.
So what has changed since your time that you began in sports to now, in terms of not just revenue generation, but everything around it?
Yeah, I think just the resources you have obviously grown a lot. I mean, being able to have business intelligence departments, teams are managing buildings now, where maybe when I first started it, we were just more a tenant. So you're getting to really, it's expanded out a lot more than just the sports. We've got Olivia Rodrigo in the building tonight, and we did a lot with that, with the premium, and we just, I'd say probably that. I mean, the resources, the size of the staffs, and just that teams are doing a lot more. I mean, some buildings are, they're building areas around the building that are restaurants and entertainment, and they're managing all that and just looking for different ways to drive revenue for the organization.
How did that help you to move to different organizations as well as different leagues in order to build your career?
I mean, the leagues are, my job in general is pretty similar to, whether it was baseball or hockey, just selling season tickets. But I think for me, it was just more of looking for the best opportunity for myself, whether it didn't really matter the sport. It just so happened that I've worked for 3 hockey teams and 1 baseball team. But I think looking for the best opportunity, and then really to work for the best people that I can, that'll help me grow. That's really been what I've looked for when I've moved, was that.
Okay, Kayla has a question for you. Kayla?
What would you say the most difficult part about your job is?
I think things change a lot, right? Like things change, and then trying to plan out ahead. It's like you're trying to manage what's happening today, but you're also having to manage and plan for what's going to happen in 3 months, so that you can be prepared when you get to that spot, that you've got everything done. Like, for instance, we're opening an all-inclusive club next year that I've been working on for 3 years. And it's just been something that's taken over my life for like the last 3 or 4 months of trying to get this thing launched and, coordinate with our fans to be able to come out and tour the space and all that. So while I've been having to do other things, we've also got that going on. So it's just, there's a lot of things change, and the way you plan it out never is the way it works. So you've got to be able to you got to be able to adjust to that. And just, obviously we've got the team too. I mean, if the team is playing really well, then, part of my job becomes a little bit easier, right? Like the individual ticket sales, the group sales, things pick up. When the team's not playing well, you still got to fill the building. So how do you do that? You got to do different types of stuff. So I would say that's probably the biggest challenge, is just the change almost on a daily basis of what you're doing.
So let's go over some of the realities of working in sports. You fist bump, Ariana Grande when she has a concert, and you have athletes making copies. What are some of the other misconceptions that people have about working in this industry?
I think you just got to remember that it's a job. It's a job like any other job. I was talking to a student this morning from out in Utah, and he asked me that same question. And it's a job. It's how you pay your bills. There's going to be parts that are not enjoyable, like me having to call some of these season ticket holders that are really upset about this club, and they don't want to pay the extra price, and they've been in their seat for 20 years. And I'm sorry about the noise. I had to get outside of my car. That's a big part of it. But then there's really cool things too that happen within sports teams that you don't get to do, with any other job. Like last year, I got to go to Finland with our team and watch us play over there. So it's a regular job. It's how you pay your bills. There's good things. There's bad things. There's a lot more good than bad. And if you love sports, then obviously being this close to it is a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I don't get to fist bump the players and hang out with them and go to dinner. And I don't get to do that part, but it's still a lot of fun. You do get a chance to see the players a little bit when you're doing events with them and things like that. And it's funny just to realize they're just like me and you. They just are really good at hockey.
Dragon, what question do you have?
What would you say the primary method you use to track like ticket price satisfaction with the fans is? Because winning can affect it or losing can affect it. How would you say you hit the sweet spot? How do you track that?
So I'm so sorry. I
How do
can
you
hear
track the ticket satisfaction of your customers based off of whether it's wins or losses or enjoyment of the game? Please speak up, guys.
So a lot of there's like 8 planes taking off at the same time. We use that a lot. I mean, we obviously use that a lot when we're starting to put out like what our benefits are going to be, and are there going to be any types of changes and things that we do. But the wins, and so my job is, in my role, is to make sure that we're doing everything we can to make sure that a fan's happy. I mean, I tell our staff all the time, make it as easy as possible to be a Blue Jacket season ticket holder. We figured it out. It's about a 6-hour commitment to come to a game. And on top of that, they got to pay for it, right? So they're paying $200 to come out and spend 6 hours. And we have no idea what the outcome of the game is going to be. We have no clue. But when people call us, we do have a clue, and we can take care of that. And, we always say yes. We just figure out how to say it and make it a big deal when we're talking to fans. So when we get our surveys back, so the NHL does a big survey every year. It's like in 4 segments of the year. And some of the questions that they ask are about that, responsiveness of rep, courteousness, season ticket holder benefits, experience at the game. Those are things that we can control for the most part. And we've always, actually 2 years ago, we were ranked number 1 out of all 32 teams in all 7 categories. This year we dropped back a little bit. We're only number 1 in 5, but we're number 2 in the other 2. So I think we're doing a good job in that spot. I mean, we get a lot of emails from our rep or from our fans talking about our reps and how they helped them and how they were just, whatever they needed, they're there for. And that's all we can control. So I think, there's no way to know this. I don't think there's a way to know this answer, at least. But, if we have a season like we're having right now, this is following up another bad season that we had last year. How many did we keep that we wouldn't have caught because of our service, or kept it because of our service? I don't know that answer, but I have to think there's some in there, right? That they didn't renew because of the team, but we made it so easy for them and they love the team that it was hard to walk away. At least that's what I believe, or that's what I hope it is.
Maddie, what question do you have?
What experiences within school or other jobs have prepared you best for the position that you're in today?
Growing up, I worked in my parents have their own business, a shoe business in Georgia. And I grew up in that business. So I think that being able to work with people, I worked out on the floor and helping people and answering questions and having to understand the differences of all the different types of shoes and why somebody should buy one over the other. And So I think that definitely helped me in dealing with people face to face, because that sometimes can be really, people get really nervous with that sometimes, is dealing with somebody not, being worried that they don't know the answer or whatever. So I think that definitely prepared me for doing face to face sales now, and just being able to talk to people. As far as in school, like I said, when I was in school, I worked at the newspaper, down in Fort Lauderdale. So that was a big part. It helped me with, just writing, learning how to write, and, write concise, and, make sure that people, you're giving people something that's easy to read. So that's been helpful for me in dealing with my own boss and having to put together summaries and different things like that. Now, granted, I've gotten a lot better over the years. Certainly wasn't perfect, but it gave me a little bit of a start.
So we have a resident hockey fan here. He hasn't been cured yet. Hayden, what question do you have?
So since you said that you worked in both baseball and hockey, have you found it more difficult selling hockey season tickets since it's not really as popular of a sport as, say, baseball or football?
Not really, just because the city I'm in, we have a team, right? So it's not, no, not really. I mean, the big difference is just obviously the seasons. Baseball runs more through the summer, hockey's more in the fall, through the winter and into the spring. Ticket prices are a little different. Hockey's a little, we don't have an $8 ticket or a $9 ticket like we did at the Marlins. So we've got it, our cheapest ticket's like $35. So it's a little bit different there. But overall, it's been pretty much the same. I mean, hockey is still, like, to your point, everybody knows baseball, right? Everybody knows how baseball works. Everybody knows, well, most people know the rules of baseball. And hockey is something that if you haven't come to a lot of games, maybe you don't know the rules, even though there's only really a handful you need to know to understand what's going on. So there is a little bit of a learning curve there. And I had that in Nashville too, just because hockey was newer. I think we were like in our, I don't know, maybe like our 8th season when I was there. And here we're in our 23rd season. But people are getting it. We're starting to get through that first group of people that, like, they were kids, when the Blue Jackets came here, say they were 5, and now they're like in their mid to late 20s. So they've really grown up with the Blue Jackets. So for them, they don't know any different, so now we're getting to that part where hopefully those people are now starting to buy season tickets. And that's the advantage some of these other teams have that have been around, Boston, Detroit, the Rangers, all these teams that have been around for so long. They've been around over 100 years. So, but we're getting there. But yeah, so there is a little bit of a learning curve more than baseball, basketball, football. I mean, this is football. I feel like everywhere in the U.S. is football country, but it is definitely, they love football here with Ohio State and the 2 NFL teams we have in the state. You don't have to explain anything to them about football.
So we have a person from one of the most traditional countries for hockey, which would be India. I'm kidding. Sai, what's your question?
I want to ask if there's any specific marketing strategies that you use to sell tickets to make sure that they're all sold out.
Yeah, I mean, we're always I work with our marketing team every day, whether it's promoting season tickets or a special group night that we do, or just single game tickets. So, I mean, we don't have like one specific strategy to do it. We're really promoting, we're just promoting what's going on. I mean, I work with our marketing team to try to do some fun things for games. Like we did a Star Wars night this year. We did which a lot of teams do. We did a Grateful Dead night where you really include all of that into the game experience. It's not just Star Wars night or Grateful Dead night where they get a gift and then they just go to the game. It was fully incorporated in the game. Like for Grateful Dead, like we had a band here. We had music going during the game. All of our giveaways were kind of targeted around Grateful Dead. So you create those types of opportunities for people that might not be a huge hockey fan, but they like Grateful Dead, and they're like, we'll go check that out. And it started to grow over the last couple of years. Like last year, we sold 800 tickets for that group that night, and this year we sold 2,200. So it's starting to build, and then it's just coming up with more of those types of things that we can do. Season ticket holders come either way, but even season ticket holders, you want to make the games different for them. I mean, yes, they're coming to watch the hockey team play, but you just want to switch it up. I mean, like we had 3 games last week, so you can't just do the same thing over and over again. But but we're always looking for ways to get new fans out to the game. And sometimes those types of events that we do that for us. So I guess the answer is yes. But nothing really guarantees a sellout. I mean, we'll have a few that we'll really hit home runs on, but not all of them. So we got to tweak them and make them better for the next year.
How important, Marty, is it that if you're doing internships, that maybe you're doing them in the off season of the sport rather than just the season of the sport to understand the industry you're in?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's advantages to both. I mean, doing them during the season's fun just because we have games and you're seeing things actually happen. In the off season, it's just more about planning. And so it's really it's like two completely different internship opportunities, where in the summer, you're just seeing it happen. And then seeing it get planned. And then in the regular season, you're seeing it actually be implemented. So it's hard to see both sides of it unless you did like a full year internship or at least a summer and fall. But yeah, it's just different experiences. So I always encourage people to do as many as you can. I mean, if you want to do one in the summer to see that side and then do one in the season to see that side. And then obviously we have, a bunch of different departments within the team too, that all do different stuff throughout the year.
Ethan has a question. Ethan?
Yeah, I was just
Say that one more time.
wondering, what type of strategies are in place to recruit and attract talented players to the organization?
You're talking about our players or staff?
Players.
Both.
Both.
Let's just go with both.
Yeah, I mean, well, the players, I mean, I don't deal really at all with that. I mean, I deal with our hockey ops department on different things, but I know they have lots of ways to track people. There's all these new tracking devices now where, the players have these like sensors in their jerseys and it tracks how far, how far they skate. Some of our guys are skating, 4.5 miles in a game. And they're tracking all sorts of things on the player, but obviously just the statistics alone, there's a zillion different statistics that you can look at for a player. That stuff's really interesting to me. I just don't get to do a lot with it. From the staff side though, I mean, ticket sales is easy because there's a number beside everybody's name of what you sold. But through CRM and through all the ways that we track things, we can tell how many calls are people making, what types of, how far are they getting along with leads? So we can use that stuff as coaching when we're meeting with the reps. Our directors meet with our reps every other week and they meet with them for, 30 minutes or more if they need it. But it's usually to kind of go through their pipeline, look at, the last couple of weeks, talk about, upcoming opportunities that they have and how they're going to attack that. And then as far as like them moving through the organization, it really depends on what the person wants to do. If they want to do ticket sales, well, then what they may end up doing is if we don't have a spot for them and they're ready to be promoted, then they're going to go to another team probably. And then we want to help them do that, especially if they've done a great job for us. But sometimes people will start in ticket sales, but ultimately they really want to do sponsorship or they really want to do premium or marketing or whatever. And, usually when a role will open, if that person applies, someone from that department will call us and say, hey, tell me about Troy. And, I'll tell them about Troy. And, then it's up to them on whether they want to move them up to that other job or not.
So this comes into the idea though, of being movable. How important is it to be able to be movable and not just set down too many routes so that you can move up sometimes, or you're just stuck with whatever that area's organizations are?
Yeah. I mean, what I always tell people is, especially early in your career, you just can't be too picky. You just got to get in, and start working and start gaining experience and start meeting people that can hopefully help you down the road and be that person that when they get called, they're going to say really good things about you. I mean, that's what you want. But in order to do that, they've got to know you and work with you. So, but I tell people, just don't be too picky. If you do have options, right, in your first job, then look at what place am I going to go to that's going to help me the most? Don't worry about the team or whether the chance of winning a championship or whatever. The manager that you're going to work for, how is that person going to help me get better? And then pick the best of those. That's what you want to pick between that. I think a lot of people look at the team and they're like, oh, I can go work for, the LA, whatever, the LA Kings, and that would be awesome. I'd live in Los Angeles and I'd get to do all this cool stuff. but the better job might be in Milwaukee, for you. The manager you're working for might be better suited to teach you more than the role in LA. But LA seems like a cooler place to live than Milwaukee, but you got to think about it long term, not short term.
So Malachi has a question. He is from Ohio and he's somehow a football fan. I can't convince him to stay here. He somehow wants to go back to Ohio. Malachi, what's your question?
Yeah, so what makes Ohio different to you and why is it a top 5 state in the USA?
What was the last part?
Why is it a top 5 state in the USA?
Oh, I mean, it's great. Like, what would you not like? I mean, it's freezing right this minute. I think it's like 30 degrees. So it's, almost April. But, I love it. I love Ohio. I've been here only 5 years, though. So, and I can't even remember your first part of what you said.
So when you're selling tickets or trying to get out to the fan base, so what about Ohio do you have to do differently than anywhere else to reach those people?
Well, I don't know if it's different. I mean, you're from Ohio, so like people love sports here, and they're very loyal to their teams. Here.
No.
They're very transient. Like Fort Lauderdale and Nashville has become really transient. So people come to the game only when their team's in town, instead of just supporting the team in general. Where in Ohio, at least from what I found in 5 years, people really love their team. I mean, think about it. We're averaging 17,000 people a game this year, and we're the 4th worst team in the league, and we were the 2nd worst team last year. And these are the highest attendance numbers that we've had in the history of the team. So while the team hasn't played well, people still enjoy and they want to support the team. And hopefully we'll flip the switch here in the next year or two and be able to give them something to, come out and cheer a little bit more for. But the fans here are fantastic, and they're just, obviously we got Ohio State here, we got the Bengals, we got the Browns, we got the Cavaliers, the Crew, Cincinnati's MLS team, us. Then there's a bunch of minor league teams too. So there's a lot of sports up here. I figured out when I started looking at this job, I looked at like all the teams around us, and within about 3 hours of Columbus, there's like 15 teams, in the NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, and NHL. They love sports up here. So that makes my job a little easier.
How has AI helped and assisted in your job when looking at CRMs and everything else and selling to the fan?
So we do work with some AI. We work with a company called Wolf Cycle. They help. We work with them. We have these bots really that send out emails for us. And whenever people respond to the email, it can respond back to them. So we've started working with that. That's really about the depth of where we are, at least in ticket sales. But I was looking at a report this morning, and these are just some leads that we just don't have the time to go after because they don't rate very well. But there's still some diamonds out there that we can get, and those bots and that AI really helps us reach those types of people. So that's been helpful. It's like having 3 more reps in the office, but they're working at a crazy pace. The bots are. I mean, they're sending out hundreds of emails a day on our behalf that we write. We write the emails, we write the responses, we write everything. It knows what to say when a response comes in.
So this is how we start Skynet, is really through the ticket sales department and the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is how we get the Terminator. Nicholas has a question.
What different strategies do you have to sell tickets during the off season rather than the on season?
So what are your strategies in the off season as compared to the on season?
So in the season, obviously we have a ton of opportunity, right? We have 45 games with the preseason, not counting playoff games. So we do almost like we do about anywhere from 30 to 50 prospects a game that we invite out to the games, and we give them a structured tour that the reps go on. So we sell a lot of season tickets that way. In the off season, it's a little different just because we don't have the games. So we're trying to pull out events, right? We're hosting like what we call like an open house where we'll tag seats. People can come out and look at seats. We did that. We actually had an event like that last night. We sold 33 season tickets at that event last night. So we do that. We're able to use some of the areas of the arena that we can't use really during the season. Like we can use our player locker room, our player cafe where they eat, you know, breakfast and lunch or whatever on game days and during practice days. So being able to use things like the locker room and people would get excited about that, right? They want to come out and see things like that. So we're able to do that. We're lucky. We have some players that live here that live in Columbus. They're actually they're from Columbus, but they play for the Blue Jackets. So they're around. We do a lot of events with those guys. They'll do some events for us, some autograph signings. And, you know, so our big thing is just getting face to face with people. We sell a lot more tickets that way. But it's harder because you can't do an event every single day, you know, so we try to space them out a little bit. And so it's different in that regard, but we just don't have the games. The games are a big driver for us for, you know, inviting people out to a game and then trying to pitch them, where in the off season, we don't have that.
So one of the concepts is you're not just selling tickets, but inside tickets, you might have loaded tickets with merchandise and with parking and with concession items, which we talk a lot about, because it's kind of a full ecosystem. What are some of the things that you really have to do to make sure the fan realizes it's more than just the ticket price to get that experience going?
Yeah, so we sell what we call like a family value pack, and it starts at $30, and it's a ticket, either a hot dog, chicken fingers, or a hamburger, chips or fries, and a drink. And we sell thousands of those, you know, because people, the initial thought of somebody coming to a game is, oh my God, I'm going to have to spend $200 on food. I'm going to have to spend $50 on parking. And it's not really that way. I mean, you can do those things if you want to buy, you know, 10 beers. But, you know, in general, you can come out to a game for $30 and get, you know, probably get $15 worth of food with it. So, which you're going to probably spend anyway. Now, most people's initial response is like, yeah, but the seats are probably terrible. And they're not. I mean, you're in a building that seats 18,000. I mean, are you up in the upper level for $30? Yeah, you are. But we do sell a ton of those. That's really, other than with our groups, we sell a lot of groups with added value. You know, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, you know, fraternities, sororities, you know, whatever, that will come out and we'll have, you know, it'll be a ticket with maybe it's got $15 on it. So it doesn't really have a product. It's just cash that they can spend when they're at the game. For the team side, a lot of those people don't spend all that money. So, or they don't come to the game at all. And, you know, so we get a little bit of that money back at the end. But at the end of the day, we want people to come out, buy food and drinks, have a great time, and come back again.
So you were during the wild era in minor league baseball where everything goes. How have you incorporated that into the major league status to where you might have a few more controls on you than you probably did in the minor league level?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things we did in the minors, and even at the Marlins when I was there, just because the stadium was so big for baseball, that we were able to do some stuff that I can't do. Like, for instance, you know, when I worked in Pensacola, we were able to do a lot of stuff on the ice, you know, with groups. We were able to let you know, a high school choir come out, you know, 40 people and sing on the ice. I can't do that at the Blue Jackets. You know, letting people, that's probably one of the biggest ones, was just being able to use the ice a lot more in the minors than I can use it here. Here, it's just super strict. You can't really do a lot. I mean, you'll get fined. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that you run into if you try to do that stuff here.
Does the strictness, though, create more opportunities in a way for you to find a way that the rules can work for you?
Yeah, I mean, there's certain things, like we've got, you know, people that we are allowed to, you know, take out to sit on the bench during warm-ups. Like, that's something really, really neat. We just can't have 50 people do that. We can only do like 6, you know. The Blue Jackets are great with us having access to players. Like, we're able to do like post-game meet and greets. You know, we can take 4 or 5 accounts down every single game and do a post-game meet and greet. So if we've got an account that's either upset about something or a prospect that we're trying to sell a big package to, we can do things like that. But we just got to get creative in how we do it and what we can do. But the Blue Jackets have been really good about letting us do it. I mean, they understand the importance of ticket sales and how hard it is, and also honestly, like how the team's been playing. I mean, you know, our president of hockey ops last year came down about mid-season and he said, look, this season's been really difficult for us. So, you know, what can we do to help? So we had a lot of we came up with a long list of things that they could do for us, which involved, you know, players making phone calls, these meet and greets post game, being able to use the player cafe that I was telling you about and have a player come in and talk, tours of the locker room. We've been able to do a lot of that sort of stuff that, you know, in the minor league, it's cool, but it's not as cool as it is here, you know, with the players that we have. I mean, these are the best players in the world playing in the NHL. So it's a little different.
I'm curious if working in a Cuisinart is better than working in a place that always wins. Is it better to work in a place that has it to where they're, you know, it's not necessarily the premier team in the winning category, you might be able to do more?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, I think a lot of teams that are sold out every single game, I mean, they probably don't do a lot of these things that we do, or that we get to do. So, I mean, so I've worked for both. I've worked for teams that sell out every game, and I've worked for a team like I'm with now. And, you know, the team in Nashville, you know, when I left there, I think my last game there was like our 145th straight sellout. Now in Nashville, we still kept doing that stuff just because it was a big part of what we did. But yeah, I think there's definitely opportunity. I mean, from a sales side, I mean, you can make more money working for a team that doesn't sell out every game because you have more tickets to sell. Whereas, you know, you're working for a team that sells out every game. There's different pressures that come with that, with having to sell every single ticket, you know, at a certain price, you know, where you might be doing a $30 ticket for Boy Scouts right now at the Blue Jackets. Well, if you're working for the Boston Bruins, they're not doing a $30 ticket for the Boy Scouts. You know, it's probably $100 ticket. So you get to do a little bit different stuff when you're in our situation. Like I said, you really can make more money because there's more tickets to sell.
What would you say is the best transition for somebody trying to get in to the industry? Should they do multiple internships during their you know, education period, or should they just try to go cold and walk up to you and say, I can sell a ticket?
You know, there's always an opportunity for something, you know, you never know but I would think your best bet would be to have a little bit of experience, you know, and know some people too that can vouch for you, you know, and say, yeah, he worked for me or he interned with us and he did a great job. I think that's always better. And you got to remember too, when you're applying for a job and, you know, there's going to be, you know, however many resumes, 100, 200, whatever, you know, they're going to look for that sort of stuff. And especially if they're only hiring for 2 or 3 positions, there's going to be 2 or 3 people that have that, you know? So if you don't, you know, it could be hard. And then there's also going to be another 2 or 3 people that somebody calls about and says, hey, you know, I know Troy, he's a great guy. He worked for me these 2 summers. He always did a great job, never distracted anybody, always looking to learn. That's going to push people ahead too. So if you haven't done anything, it's probably hard just because you're basically just a sheet of paper for somebody that's what somebody's looking at.
So one of the things we haven't talked about is the guest services side of it, which is still part of ticket sales. Because yeah, you've sold them on a ticket, but how do you make sure that if they're a season ticket holder and you've already got their money, what is that concept to make sure that they're happy at all times?
Well, we try our best to do that. We have a couple, so I have a 13-person service team. All they do is manage accounts. That's it. They can sell new and stuff too, but their main job is to do that. So we have the second biggest service department in the whole NHL, because we have a ton of accounts. You know, the package that a lot of people are buying right now, just because of timing and cost, is our 11 game plan. So we sell a ton of those things. And like we had that event last night. We had 55 people buy season tickets, a season ticket package. And I think it was 42 of the people bought quarter plans. So that's 42 accounts, you know, well, 55 new accounts, but 42 new accounts that are just our smallest package. So what we do is we want to try to touch base at least twice a year. That's really what's manageable. It's like some teams are like, oh, we reach out 8 times a year. Well, you can't do that. It's too many times, and you're trying to do your job too. So what we do is a welcome to the season call, usually in October, November, just to check in, make sure people are having a great, they're enjoying their tickets. They didn't have any problems. They understand all the benefits that come with being a season ticket holder. We want to make sure they know how to redeem all that stuff. And then we do a mid-season call, which is usually like right when we finish the welcome to the season call, then we start the mid-season call, because it takes a while to get through, 6,000 accounts. Even though I've got 13 people, it's still a lot of time because they're also doing their regular job during the day. And then by the time we get through the middle of the season calls, we're usually right around renewals. So we want to make sure that we've reached out at least a couple times and dealt with people before we send them a renewal. Because that's the biggest thing season ticket holders always say is, well, you never call me until you want money. So we want to make sure that that's not the case when we're dealing with them. And then it's just like I was saying earlier, just make it easy to be a season ticket holder. I mean, if you need something, let's do it. There's not going to be anything that's so crazy that we can't do, so let's just do it and move on and make the people happy. The thing that I have to coach our reps on the most is when we do say yes every time, and we pretty much do, is make it a big deal when we do it. Say, hey, we're doing this because, you've been a season ticket for 10 years. We don't typically do this, but you know what? You've been around forever, and we want to make sure you're happy. And they feel better, even though it's the same answer. It's just how you say it, how you do it. So we coach them a lot on that because that's a huge part of it.
So the industry standard used to be 100 phone calls a day. How has that changed? And are we really reaching people more with email and text and everything else rather than just calling them up?
Yeah, we don't. I mean, I know that's you and I talked about this actually a few years ago one time. Yeah, I mean, we don't require that. I mean, we're looking more to like 60 to 70 probably, and that includes texts, emails, calls, in-person meetings. We have a huge dashboard that we look at through our CRM system that we can see like what everybody's doing. And if someone's got, if someone only made 42 calls one day, but they connected with another 30 on text and they set 6 appointments, well, I'm not going to be upset with that person. Now if I saw over a period of a few days of low output and no appointments set, then we'd have to talk, right? And say like, hey, what's going on? Like, what are you running into here? How can we help? But that's rare that we have that happen. It's just everything's so out in the open. Everybody sees everything. Every single week we've got a trophy we give to the person that had the most activities that week, the most revenue that week, the most group revenue. So, I mean, it's not hidden anywhere. So we're going to see that every day, what's going on with the department. So do we have some days where people hit 100? For sure. Really just depends on the day and what's going on and how many people they're contacting. Because if they only reach out to 60, but they speak to 25 of those people, that's probably a lot. That's probably a lot to connect with.
So how has your career changed you as a mentor for other people coming up?
I think just more experience that I have, being able to share what I was successful. I tell them all the time, I'm like, every job in the department I've done them all. I've been a service rep. I've been a sales rep. I've done all the directors' jobs. I've done all the managers' jobs. I've done all the jobs. So I know exactly they're not going to tell me something that I don't understand because I've done them all. So just being able to share that experience and then working with other teams, that's another thing that, I think some people, especially our youngest reps, I mean, this is their first job, and I've worked for 5 teams, 6 teams. I've worked with different managers in different cities, different leagues. So I feel like I have a lot to offer when it comes to, sharing experiences with these guys and what's been successful for me and more importantly, what hasn't been, so we can avoid it and move on.
Has your approach changed as the generations have changed, or has it stayed the same?
No, I think it's got to change a little bit. There's days I get frustrated sometimes with because I'm used to, it just wasn't how it was when I did it. But I have to remember that it's different, right? And we've got to come up with a different way to do it, or a different approach, or, do we need to do more contests? Anytime we do contests, obviously we get more activity. So yeah, it has changed. It's not the same as you just work as hard as you work from 8 to 8 every night. And if somebody doesn't do that, you get upset with them. Like, that's not how people are now. And we gotta just work it a little different. This is a big topic at all of our league meetings every time, is working with the group today versus working with the group when we were coming up through it. So it's just different.
How does that help you be receptive to new ideas?
I try to listen a lot to things that I probably wouldn't have done 10 years ago, that, I'm like, okay, it makes sense. Like, we'll try it. I try to take feedback from the reps as much as I can. I mean, we involve them. We're a very collaborative organization. So, before we send out renewals, we literally run everything through the reps. We're like, hey, I want to make sure you guys understand it. Is there any questions? What are we going to run into that fans might say that we're not thinking of? So yeah, I mean, we're always looking at ideas that the reps may have for us, and we've instituted a lot of them. There's been things I've wanted to roll out that after talking to the reps, I'm like, maybe it's not such a great idea. I didn't think of that, and that, and we end up changing it or just totally not doing it.
So you and I have really networked and connected at conferences. How important is it to go to different networking events and conferences to meet people and also be seen?
Super important, I believe. One of our managers that had never been to a conference went to one recently, and he got to meet like all the inside sales managers for all the other teams. And it's a game changer for him, because now if he's got a question or anything, he can reach out to those people, and he knows them now, and it's big for that sort of stuff. And just sharing ideas, at a conference. It's funny, the best ideas are probably talked about at the bar at 1:00 in the morning, on a Tuesday night, instead of actually in the meetings themselves. But then as far as being seen, I mean, yeah, you want people to know who you are, that way when a job does open up, or a next level job opens up, or somebody calls Troy and says, hey, do you know of anybody that might be good for this role? They will have met, they'll know each other, and they'll trust giving that person's name because they know them at that point. So, I mean, yeah, I've got a huge network, obviously, of people over all the time I've done, but those all really started when I started being able to go to those meetings and things like that.
Well, we talk about this industry, but it's really got about only 10,000 employees total across everything. Do people really realize how small it is and how connected it is, in terms of if you burn an employer, you're not really doing your job? It's going to hurt you long term, right?
It will, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. A lot of my reps, I find out about my reps applying for other jobs before they tell me, because the person that they applied with calls me and tells me. So that happens all the time. Well, I mean, I don't have people like that all the time, but it happens a lot. So yeah, and I'm never upset. I mean, I always want people to move up in their career, and if that means them moving, then I'll help them, especially if they've done a really good job for us. But yeah, if you do something, you're just not really doing your job. I think a lot of people think like, I'm just going to get out of here and go to another job and it'll be better there. But you may not ever get that opportunity, because if they call me and ask me about you, it's hard for me to say like, oh my God, this person did a great job. Now, I probably won't say much other than, hey, they worked here, and yeah, you should interview them. But because I don't want to, make somebody not be able to get another job. I mean, that's not the goal, but it would hurt you. I've seen it hurt people, a lot of people that just either left the job on really, really bad terms, and it'll slow you down for a while. Or if you just do something dumb and get yourself fired. I've seen that happen too many times. And then you've got to go tell the guy you're applying for, or the girl or the person you're applying for, that, either why you have a gap in your resume or why you left the other team. And teams follow up with other teams and they ask what's going on. So it can be tough.
Well, fantastic stuff, Marty. Any final thoughts?
No, I appreciate you inviting me on. It's great to connect with you again. And if anybody ever needs anything in Columbus, let me know.
Well, not that anybody would ever go to Ohio. Why would you go to Ohio? Marty, I'll probably see you at ALSD, I assume, right? You're gonna go to LA?
No, I'm actually not going to that. We have some other people coming from the Blue Jackets though, so maybe you'll see them.
All right, fantastic stuff. Thank you for your time.
Yep, absolutely. I hope everyone has a great weekend. And Troy, feel free to share my info if anybody wants to have a one-off conversation. I'm happy to do it.
I can't do that because they might move to Ohio with you. I don't know why anybody would go to Ohio, Malachi.
Ohio's great. Ohio's great.
Thank you very much.